Hello, friends, and welcome back to this week's episode of Thank You, Come Again. Today, I've got the pleasure of being joined by Eric Bandholz, founder of Beardbrand, Shark Tank alum, host of eCommerce Conversations podcast, and I'm going to go on record and say the most badass beard and hair in all of e-commerce. Eric, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Hey man, that's quite the intro. I appreciate all the compliments, but I don't know if I got the best beard anymore now that it's a little bit shorter.
Hey, well, as someone who can't really grow a full connected beard quite yet, 28 still can't do it. So who knows if I'll get there? But no,
Yeah.
gotta give respect, I think, and props where it's due. But today, Eric, we're going to be diving into your e-commerce journey, the Beard Brand story, how you've approached customer retention at Beard Brand, what learnings came from 2022 and bets that you might be making in 2023, and maybe along the way offer some wisdom and inspiration to current and aspiring PTC founders. But first, who is Eric Bandholz, and can you share with us a little bit of your journey on building Beard Brand?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Beardbrand. We're a men's grooming company. Obviously, we've got products for the beard, but we've grown beyond the beard over the past 10 years into hair care and skincare, smelling good and using some tools. So if you're a dude, we've pretty much got some amazing products for you. We're also an entirely bootstrap company. So any dollar we made, we put back into the business. I've got two business partners. So we've been able to grow slowly and organically over the years for a very much kind of, I want to say drama free, but minimal amount of drama over the past 10 years. That's been a fun ride being able to work on a business that I enjoy and with people that I enjoy as well.
That's awesome. And I've been following Beer Brand for quite some time. I started as a retention marketer several years back and really learning, I think, from great brands. I think I had saw Beard Brand, like a Klaviyo blog or something a long time ago. And so I subscribed to the emails, the content, obviously. I've seen you guys around. I feel like I see your face everywhere. But I'm really curious. I was doing some research on you. I learned that you were a financial advisor turned, entrepreneur. Can you talk about sort of that evolution of like jumping from the corporate world to really doing this full time and going all in on Beard Brand?
Yeah, I mean, so we got to reverse like 12 years when I used to be a financial advisor. And I was not a very successful financial advisor. I did it for about a year, year and a half, and kind of hit my numbers, but never to the point where it was like a sustainable business because a lot of financial advisors are just kind of like their own independent advisors. The idea of trading your time for money is not something that I really was drawn to, like in financial advising or law school or doctors. Those type of roles are not something that excites me. And in addition to that, the kind of this idea in the financial advising world that you look at your prospects or your clients or candidates based on their net worth, and I really didn't like enjoy looking at people based on how much money was in their bank account, and then kind of like prospecting based on that, because essentially you do the same amount of work um, with two different clients. One has $1 million portfolio and one has $100,000 portfolio. You're going to get paid more in the $1 million one. So there's just kind of like this weird, sketchy vibe that I would never like describe myself as a financial advisor. I do love finance and I do love investing, but that was not quite the right fit for me. And always kind of like was entrepreneurial, and there's elements of that role that are entrepreneurial that I do like and are drawn to. But in those early days, like if I don't like something, some people are really good at staying at jobs for long periods of time, even though they're not happy. Like I am not one of those guys. Like if I'm not happy, I am working on being out the door in a very short amount of time. And the financial advisor role was kind of like that. I did not enjoy it. Unfortunately, I had hit my goals for like 6 months in advance. So there's like no reason for me to leave because I could essentially do nothing for 6 months and still be on target with my goal. So I kind of hung around there and like was working on a lot of side projects at the time. Like and when I found that when I'm bored and my main career or not inspired by my main career, like I really start thinking about anything and everything. So I had like 4 or 5 projects that I had started up during this time period, as I like to say, like kind of a wake of failed projects. Um, and Beardbrand was one of those projects, and fortunately, the only difference between Beardbrand and all my other projects was that I had business partners with Beardbrand, and I think that was the major thing that allowed Beardbrand to become successful versus my other projects.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, it sounds like, things that you learned through those experiences you brought into the business. I'm sure having some of that financial background and being a bootstrap company probably has some sort of, kind of common thread there as well. But you mentioned having business partners too. And so I'm curious, what parts of the business then are you most passionate about? And what parts of the business are you maybe not as passionate about? And you kind of learn to maybe bring in help or obviously have your partners to help there. So I'm just kind of curious to learn sort of like that sort of lay of the land.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of trying to build a company that you can enjoy doing for theoretically the rest of your life. Like this is the mentality that we have at Beard Brand is like, I want to build a sustainable company. Part of having a sustainable company is enjoying the journey. And part of enjoying the journey is doing things that you like and enjoy. So creating content is something that I do tend to enjoy. Doing podcasts like this is a lot of fun for me, telling the story. And of course, we have a YouTube channel and other social media platforms where I create content, and I really enjoy that. I also do enjoy the vision aspect, like where we're taking the company, where the brand, vision from a brand perspective as well, what the brand stands for, both in the visual design, like we just rolled out these new packaging um, in 2022, and that was kind of one of the projects I was really excited about. Where I do not enjoy parts of the business is on the execution. I don't enjoy holding people accountable. I am not a micromanager. I do not like building SOPs and telling you to follow these instructions. I really like to hire people who are smart, who understand the direction we're going, and are able to find those opportunities themselves and can hold themselves accountable to that. And then subsequently, operations is kind of not my cup of tea because that's a lot of a lot of processes, and
Sure,
a
sure.
lot of accountability and a lot of checking things off. And I'm definitely more of a creative kind of like ideas person. So the more I can spend on the vision and the content, the video content specifically, I think that the more connected I feel to the business.
It's great that you kind of have that sort of outlook, and I think I'm the same way, very creatively driven, not so much getting in the weeds of creating SOPs and things like that. But I've learned to talk to more founders, having that awareness is one of the most critical phases of really growing a business. Is knowing what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and learning to hire or bring on help if needed to be able to do that. And you mentioned like sort of the vision of the company. I love your core values. I was looking through the website, freedom, hunger, trust, and then even your product ethos. I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about like how those sort of kind of frameworks have really shaped Beard Brand, and was that something that like you did as you were building the company? Have you just sort of like as you've built the company, kind of revised those? Can you just talk a little bit about the evolution or kind of framework behind those?
Yeah, I'm a big mission guy. I'm a big core values guy. Those have been instrumental in the success and growth of our company over the years. Freedom, hunger, and trust. We probably came up with those within like our first quarterly strategy session. So we do quarterly strategy sessions outside of the business to be able to make sure we're pointed in the right direction. That's me and my two business partners. We'll get together and kind of talk about where we're going. So in the early days, it was a lot of like, what is our mission and what are our core values and what is our purpose and how we're growing the business and do we want to bootstrap or raise money and how quickly do we want to grow and what do we want out of the business, all that stuff. But now it's pretty much just more focused on kind of like the projects that we'll be working on and we've pretty well gotten established. But freedom, hunger, and trust, you know, I think of them as a triangle where they need to work in harmony with each other. Because if you to be able to get the most like room within the triangle to be able to create the most, you need to not pull them all out of whack. So like if you think about it, like this being freedom, this being hunger, and this being trust. Like if you pull it too far with the hunger and trust, and you have no freedom, then the space gets small. I don't know if this is a good analogy or,
No, I love it. That's
or
great.
not, but basically it's about having core values that have balance, and also having core values that uniquely stand on their own. Because I feel like a lot of people fall into this trap where they have like 5 or 7 or 10 core values, and a lot of them are the same. It's like, like we work really hard and, we turn down no opportunity. It's like, well, those are the exact same thing. It's like that's drive, that's hunger. And then, for us, trust is a big one. And I think trust speeds up the way you do business. We tend to be shy of like these very long contracts that, everything is covered and everything is lived by the contract. It's more like, hey, man, just do what you say you're going to do. And if something goes wrong, let's work to figure it out and solve that problem. So, kind of our style is a little more handshake type of agreements, and kind of also like, wanting to earn, our vendors wanting to earn our business, but us also wanting to take care of our vendors that they enjoy working on our account and providing us services. So, and then, freedom is like ultimately, why do we do this? Like, I don't want to be anybody's bitch. I don't think my team members want to be anybody's bitch. It's not fun being somebody's bitch. I don't want to be, like Amazon's bitch or anybody's bitch. So, like, a lot of the decisions we make are aligned with how we allow our company to make independent decisions that are not influenced by, third parties who may have different incentives than what we have. So it's been a good guiding light, and we've kind of learned some red flags over the years to just kind of walk away from deals or walk away from partnerships based on things that don't align within our core values.
It definitely sounds like those have been guiding principles that have served you very well. And I love that you kind of have this harmony, I think, between the three of them. And that triangle analogy is great. I really enjoyed at least getting to hear that. I think also what you said about like eliminating redundancies too. I think about past companies that I was in, we had, 7, 10, 12 core values. And like, yeah, I mean, a lot of them, that's like kind of nonsense almost. Like to have three that really hit on it, three's a lot already, honestly, like to remember day in, day out. So I think that that's really great that you've done that. And the reason I ask all this and kind of set up some of like now really what I want to get into is kind of like retention, customer experience, all these different things. And so learning kind of your ethos, I feel like is helpful in this conversation. But as you've started to really grow Beardbrand over the last 10 years and, the journey you think about and kind of the ups and downs, but how did you focus on growing customer retention? Like what were some of the steps that you were taking along the way to keep customers coming back and buying again?
I probably take a little bit different approach than a lot of like traditional marketers who may think about like, let's roll out a referral program, or like get people into subscriptions and really drive that. My mindset is like, how do I make a business so good and products so amazing that they can't do anything but talk to their friends about it and buy again? Like, so that's the strategy we tend to take. I think I'm probably inspired by Tesla in that regards. I feel like their product is so amazing, and it gets challenging with this because like ultimately like something like this is like white goo in a bottle, and to most people it's pretty hard to discern the difference between this and maybe one of our competitors products. So when that is a challenge, when your product is slightly commoditized, then you have to think about how your business can break through that aspect of it. And we do that by having like a really nice unboxing experience, by taking care of our customers if something goes wrong or they're not happy in regards to returns. About over there is our barbershop. So like to you can get like literally the experience you see on YouTube. You can come in to the barbers you see on YouTube and get a haircut from them, a beard trim from them, and get the banter that we show on there as well. So being able to kind of like take the online and bring it to the real world. Now, not everyone's in Austin, and we've got more customers than barbers who can serve them. So it's not entirely feasible that everybody's going to be able to experience that. But the people who really buy into Beardbrand and what we're doing and the mission We put on like special events. We call it the Alliance Conference, where they come in and they meet other customers, and we kind of focus on growing as individuals and building those connections around like-minded people. So that's kind of how we look at it. And then I'm not a big metric guy. Like you kind of couldn't already tell. So like I couldn't even tell you what our reorder rate is, or retention rate. But what I can tell you is just like is are we doing the things that are cool and kind of remarkable? And I think we are. I think we are. But there's also room to improve. That's why we show up to work every day.
Definitely. And I mean, I definitely think you are. It sounds, a lot of like what I'm hearing too as that kind of creative side of you and the vision kind of that you have is sort of guiding a lot of this. And in my opinion, like Beardbrand is a perfect DTC case study in the effective intersection of a few things. It's content, it's community, it's a visible founder like yourself. You look at things like the Urban Beardsman blog, the PDPs, which feature videos of you talking about all of the products. Like I loved going through those and just seeing that and kind of being like, wow, like you're really taking the time to connect with the customer as they're considering these products. And then even the YouTube channel, obviously been a big staple for you, millions of views and subscribers at this point. It's all honestly quite remarkable, the vision and creativity that you've really entrenched into the brand. And I think it creates sort of like this sense of connectedness, not only to the products, which is great, but also to the people like behind the brand. And I feel like that's a lot of why I buy with brands is like the connectedness that I feel to the people behind the brand. Can you talk about some of the origins of like how important was content and community as you were building Beardbrand and sort of like that journey that you've had with content?
Yeah, so I mean, like the start of Beardbrand was started in content. I started by blogging and the YouTube channel, and the vision for Beardbrand was never to create a grooming company. The vision was to help men on their journey to love the man looking back at them in the mirror. In the early days, when there was a lot of pressure to shave your face and look a certain way, we really did focus on empowering guys to grow their beards out and the adversity that they might face in that. Nowadays, like 10 years later, it seems like it's something that we won on. I feel like guys can grow facial hair in pretty much any environment they want, outside of ones where you have to wear a mask for safety protection. And so we kind of transitioned our messaging to more about loving the man who looks back at you. And we're obviously pro beard, but we're also more than being pro beard. We're pro men and what the man needs to do to keep on growing and improve. So yeah, content is like how we do it. I almost look at products as, we don't do content to sell more products. We sell more products to be able to create more content and kind of get our mission out there. So it's almost like a reverse kind of strategy that we have as like a generally pretty mission oriented organization.
I think that's an interesting kind of like flipping the switch a little bit on how you view content, but I think it speaks a lot to just the philosophy that you have behind this content. Loving the man behind, like, that all those different things you're talking about there is really really powerful stuff. And what's the process like for creating this content? Like, who's involved? What informs the decisions that you're making? Is it like customer questions that inform it? Are you just have this idea and like you've got to get it out? Like, what is sort of the evolution of creating all that content that you put out?
Yeah, I mean, I've done like a master class on this over on with Founder, talking about how we do our YouTube marketing, and it's really, there's a lot to it. So I'll try to give the very high level. And we've been creating content for 10 plus years. So and we have thousands of videos. So I've pretty much created content on anything and everything you could ever imagine when it comes to men's grooming. So in the early days, it was, create a video and then see what the comments are. And then, like, hey, could you talk about how to eat with a beard? It's like, okay, well, I'll do a video on that. And then eventually people ask questions and you just start linking them to the videos you already did. And YouTube is a really challenging algorithm to be able to, leverage that algorithm to be able to get your content in front of an audience that you normally wouldn't be able to get in front of. requires a lot of creativity and being able to generate content that piques interest and hooks them in with the content. So over the years, we kind of evolve the channels with our primary channel focusing on barbershop experience and the haircuts they get at a barbershop. So giving customers tools on maybe like what kind of hairstyle is going to work for them. They see a guy who has a similar build or similar look to him, similar hair type, and then they're able to take that into the barber and be like, hey, I saw this video on YouTube. I really want to go with this cut. So being able to provide a tool like that. And then with our, we have a lot of different content creators. I never wanted this to be Eric brand. I wanted it to be Beardbrand and kind of represent more than just me. So we have Carlos and Greg are some other regular content creators that we've had for a number of years. And in terms of like how I content create it's a very hands off thing. Like I have my ideas that I'll get and I'll jot down like 3 or 4 bullet points and then hit record and then send it over to the video editor and just let the video editor do what the video editor does. And then with Carlos and Greg, it's kind of the same thing. It's like they're responsible for coming up with their own ideas and their own inspiration. And then, we kind of learn over time. Like, so in the barbershop, we learn that giant transformations are going to be a better use of our time to produce that type of content over maybe a more standard kind of trim up haircut. So being able to identify and find opportunities and like almost like build a network of guys who are willing to do transformations at some point in the future is something that we're always doing. So Sylvester, who's our camera person, is in the barbershop, and he's kind of always got that camera ready in case he finds an interesting client coming into the chair to the barbershop. And then we just got a lot better at figuring out how to title our videos and pick out thumbnails.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot going on there. I think it also is really fascinating to hear, just sort of like how you think about the inspiration for the content, the investment that you've even made too. Like, I think a lot of brands want to do YouTube. I hear about, oh, it's the awareness engine, like all these views that you're getting. It's such an organic channel, but like you look at like a lot of what the content they're putting out, it's sort of like doesn't feel like you kind of want to hang out and stay around on the channel for too long. But when I go to like the Beardbrand YouTube channels, it's like the transformations are great. Some of the, how-tos are great. There's just a lot more content that kind of creates like, I'm not being sold, but I feel like I'm really learning about, all these different things. I'm feeling like there's this community aspect to it. I think about like, we have a customer at Wonderment called Mini Katana, and they're like super bullish on YouTube and what they're doing. And that's super cool to see. But I think it's really great to hear how bullish you have been on YouTube and the investment that you've made. But I'm curious if, like, do you think like, it's a long-term investment in something like YouTube? Like you have to be committed to consistently just putting in the work, or could a brand just spin up a few YouTube videos and hope for the best? Like, is it really a lot more work, I think, than what's maybe cracked up to kind of be talked about in some of these kind of content guru guides, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. It's and you think about if you're, from my perspective, I'm trying to build a bootstrap company, and to build a bootstrap company, when you don't have a lot of money, you have scarce resources. I mean, the reality is all businesses have scarce resources, and it's how you allocate those scarce resources that, kind of give you a competitive advantage. But as a company, especially in the early days, we had more time than money. So when you have more time than money, you need to be doing time intensive things. And that's going to be content, specifically blogging, photography, video editing. All those things take a lot of time. And there's a reason why brands generally stay away from it. In addition to that, the time that you put into it, a video I produced, 10 years ago and a video I produce now take essentially the same amount of time to produce. Yet one will get, back in the day, it would get a couple hundred views, and now it gets to, 20 or 100,000 views, depending on how well it does. So no difference in energy going into it. So you do need to, plan on the foundation being built. And the reality is, like, I don't think a lot of people understand how challenging YouTube is when they dip their toes into it. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go viral YouTube. Here's this viral video, and they produce it. they'll get 30 views and be like, that was a complete waste. I'm not doing it anymore. And if that's kind of your mindset, you should not even do it to begin with, because I would say like YouTube's going to take about 6 to 12 months to see any kind of traction. And not only that, for you to be able to understand the algorithm and understand how to title your content, understand what kind of thumbnails are going to resonate with your audience. All that learning takes time and it takes data points. So if you have one video, you're really not going to know what that data point is. You need, 5 to 10, 15 videos to be able to be like, all right, what are the trends? What videos are doing the best and why are they doing the best? And where am I getting, the longest watch time, and where am I getting the people who, click in the videos, but maybe they leave. So like being able to combine the elements that hook people in and then combine the elements that keep people engaged with the content. It takes a lot of time. So yeah, we're like, I'm working on what am I, 41 years old, so I've got about another 30 years of work. That's my time frame. So when you have a 30-year time frame, you're able to really invest in things that take time. Whereas I think a lot of entrepreneurs get into this trap of like, oh, I got to build a business and sell it in 3 to 5 years, and then talk about my exit and brag about all the money I made with this giant exit and money in the bank, and lack of fulfillment after the fact they've sold their baby.
I think that's a great call out that you just made there. And I was talking to another founder from Bomb Tech Golf. He just sold the company, exited, but it took him, about 12, 15 years, I think, of being in that company, but like still runs it, still loves the company. I think if you have the passion and the enthusiasm, you mentioned that long time horizon, but it's the investment and like kind of the why you show up to work every day, reminding yourself of those things. So then you were saying about this, you were talking about YouTube too, and the investment. So we work with a customer called Feastables. It's a Mr. Beast brand, and I hadn't known of Mr. Beast before like we worked with them. So I was just doing some research on Jimmy and his kind of creative process, and talking about like he spent like years studying YouTube and like learning the best thumbnails and like the best way to like structure titles and all these different things. And so it's really interesting to hear you talk about this and what you've learned over the investing in a channel like YouTube, and that it isn't going to be all sunshine and roses. You have to learn along the way and really be invested in creating good content at the heart of it. And that kind of creates that community, I think, in a lot of ways as well, which can be sort of that great unlock for customer retention, I think.
Yeah, and Jimmy's, Mr. Beast and all of the content he has is just an amazing inspiration for content creators. But you also have to recognize that there's different kinds of content. Like Mr. Beast is creating content that can appeal to everybody, and subsequently, like there's going to be less of an affinity to, maybe certain types of projects. Now he's got such a huge audience, and so many people are watching his stuff that he's able to drive sales for like the Beast Burger. I bought. I'll admit I bought that, and that was it just blew my mind, his ability to kind of do these mega projects. But there's opportunity in the niches as well, where you
Sure.
produce content that isn't going to blow up like Mr. Beast. It isn't designed to be viral. Maybe you're only going to get 1,000 views, but those 1,000 views are people who are willing to spend, $10,000 a year with you,
Mhm.
and depending on your product or your expertise. So you don't need to think you're only going to be successful in YouTube if you're getting millions of views. In fact, we started chasing views with Beardbrand, and we used to see kind of like the growth of the company and the growth of the YouTube channel went like this. And then all of a sudden, when we started focusing on views, the company kind of still went up, but the views went way up, and it was no longer aligned. And there was clearly like the fact that we were producing content for not our intended customer at Beardbrand. And the question is like, from an ego perspective, like maybe we would have been better off if we just kind of stuck to our guns and our core values and our mission rather than chasing views. And it's a hard thing to decide, to know what is right, because it is appealing to have so many millions of views, and the potential that those views could become customers over time.
Totally. I think, yeah, a lot of the vanity metrics that folks can chase could end up leading them down paths that maybe aren't as fruitful for the business. And I think it comes back to defining the goals of like what you're really investing in. And yeah, I mean, 1,000 views on YouTube might end up being, 1,000 paying customers. I mean, that's maybe a little ridiculous, but like it really is like what you're saying. It's the intent and really the audience that you're going after. A company that sells, ceramic mugs isn't going to take over YouTube most likely, but, they might find a really loyal niche and audience within that too. To kind of pull things back a little bit to some of the kind of how you kind of thought about retention at Beardbrand. With first time customers, one of the biggest challenges that a lot of merchants face, I think, is nurturing a first time customer into maybe not a lifelong customer, but really a loyal customer that comes back and buys multiple times. What are some of the touch points, if that's content or emails, text, whatever that you're sending? Like, what goes into creating what you think is a great first customer into maybe a more loyal customer for Beardbrand?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the way we think about things is like, what can Amazon do really well, and not focusing on competing in those regards. So Amazon can give you all the selection in the world. They can ship to you super quickly, and I don't know. I think that's about all they got going for them. Whereas we can do so much more. We can, make our packages go out the door really nice. So there's a beautiful unboxing experience. We can throw in freebies without it really being too much complicated hassle. So we have like a little booklets. Let's see, do I have one in my pocket? We have little booklets that we include, and then the email flows as well, like the education. So we can focus on education. There's one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit earlier around content, and it's video and it's email as well, is like, I want viewers to think about content not in regards of like how many emails do I send a week, but in regards to how can I send as many pieces of content as possible. And the answer to that is you need to have content that really brings a lot of value to the customers. Like The Hustle and Morning Brew are perfect examples. They're sending out content every single day. And the reason they send it out every day is because it's valuable and people enjoy it. But if your content is just like, oh, I got a 10% sale, I got a 10% sale, I got a 10% sale, people are not going to have any value in that. So you change your mindset to like, how do I produce content that people are excited to open up on a daily basis or a regular basis? And that is where you start to build that loyalty for your customer. So you have to think about your product and not what your product does, but what your product allows your customer to do. Like, how does it bring value to their life? Like for us, our products help our dudes look good, and then when they look good, they feel good. When they feel good, they become better, partners and fathers and community members and colleagues in their office. And then we can make the world a better place through that self-investment. So we don't focus on like the ingredients and like the containers and the sales and the discounts and the website. What we focus on is that journey of growth. And then when you're focused on a journey of growth, that's so many things. That's no longer just like taking a shower every day. That's, like, how do you communicate to your spouse? How do you become a dad and like deal with the hardships of parenting and the challenges that come with that? There's just so many avenues of content you can go when you think beyond what your product does, and instead think about how your product brings value to customers' lives.
That's really powerful, and that's a great transformation of kind of like what I think. Like when I think about when I was consulting for brands, a lot of the time, like we would think about content in this like vacuum of like, okay, like we just got to focus on a few things of like how to use a product, what makes it great, all those different things. But like you've really taken this approach of like it's the whole experience, it's the lifestyle, it's the different things that you have touch points that can actually connect on a deeper level, I think, with the customer at the end of the day. And I think that's what creates content that is so engageable, is that, I mean, when I visit the YouTube page, I even was looking at it this morning, I'm like seeing all these things like transformations and different kind of like content that isn't like, I would click on that and watch it even if I wasn't looking to buy products. And I think that keeps you engaged in sort of the ecosystem of Beardbrand in a lot more of a different way than, just like, here's a generic piece of content, here's a sale. I've lost interest after a week, 2 weeks of shopping with this brand. That to me is a great unlock. And I know that's a big challenge for a lot of brands. And so one of the things that I think can really help in that is talking to your customers or learning what's valuable to them in some ways as well, and kind of like how to create content around that. A lot of founders say the best way to grow the business is to talk to your customers, and I totally agree. But I'm curious, like, what does that mean to you? And do you think that talking to the customers has helped you to create a more effective business?
I mean, I don't think you can live in a bubble, and I think that's probably one of the advantages a D2C company has over like an Amazon reseller or a seller on Amazon is they really do get that ability to have that one-on-one conversation. We've created a private community called the Alliance, which serves as a resource to us in terms of like product feedback, product testing, prototyping, directions that we should go, opportunities to improve what we're offering, as well as our communication with our audience on social media, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, to be able to understand, what they're going through and the challenges they have. So I think being in tune with your customers is really important. But at the end of the day, they're going to make suggestions that may or may not align with the vision of your company and the direction you want to take the company. So you have to be prepared to, like see comments that are not aligned with what you're doing and are not supportive, maybe more critical. And, the consequences that come along with that too, because like I can find someone who wants, like our old packaging, and I can find someone who wants our new packaging. And so like, what do? Like it's really ultimately comes down to you and kind of like your vision and what you want to be able to build a business the way you want to build it. Um, yeah.
Have there been times then where you talk about like vision and sort of like you're listening to the customer, you're seeing all this feedback, you might maybe not agree with all of it, or you have this conviction that like packaging, for example, I don't know if there was any feedback that kind of led to that decision, but I'm just curious, like, have there been times where you've gone against the mentality that the customer is always right in favor of your vision? And like, how do you sort of tiptoe that kind of line then?
All the time, like um, maybe for better or for worse. Like ultimately, at the end of the day, I just want to build a company that I find really cool and does things that I think are neat. And I kind of hope that there's other people out there who align with that. I understand everyone's going to have different needs and opinions about certain things. But yeah, we've definitely had some feedback on our packaging and our product offering that people weren't happy. But at the end of the day, I've been doing this for 10 years of my life for 40 plus hours a week, and I plan on doing it for another 30 hours. So like, I really don't want to create products that sell well that I don't like just because I'm making money. Because like, not to say I'm filthy rich or anything, but I I don't have a lot of needs to buy a lot of things. Like I've got my house, I've got no debt. I've got cars, I've got food on the table. I can pay for my kids' schools and stuff like that. So to make more money isn't what I want. To do things that are cool or I find cool is what I want. So that takes a higher priority than always chasing, growth and revenue. And then hopefully, like I said earlier, hopefully there's other people out there who think the things that were cool are cool and worth, brings value to their lives and is worth it to them.
I have a lot of respect for that, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think that is to me something that as I've talked to more founders, they sort of struggle with sort of like the internal voice of like, do I, the reason that the vision that I have is this kind of core values, the frameworks that I've really created, and then you kind of come again. It's kind of this fork in the road of do you go against everything that you've kind of been building to appease, like this. I mean, obviously listening to customer points can be really fantastic, but you have to kind of think about like, why did I start this in the first place? You mentioned if you're going to be here for another 30 years, you want to be motivated to come, to show up, to build amazing things and build an awesome brand. I have a lot of respect for that. So I think that that's something that I'm glad he touched on. I think is a message a lot of founders need to hear, I think, in their journey as well. And I
Yeah.
wanted, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just, kind of one of the things I like to say is like, there's only one person who's going to spend 100% of time with you, which is yourself. So you might as well enjoy that person. And kind of the same is true with the business. Assuming you don't have like outside funders or funding or debt or like these liabilities that you need to pay off. If you build a business that's entirely free, from debt and free from outside parties, then like it really you and your business partners are going to be the ones who spend as much time in the business. So you might as well enjoy it, because there's no point building a business that's not fun to be part of. And
That's very true. We
not to say
spend
there's going to be hard days, that's for sure. But you want to do it for yourself, not for other people.
absolutely. We spend the bulk of our lives working, whether that's, for somebody or in an entrepreneurial endeavor. And to be able to enjoy it and have fulfillment, like that's the American dream, the American spirit, obviously. But like in a more broader sense, like, getting to call your own shots, I think is one of the greatest fulfillments in kind of life, I think. This has been great to kind of have a little more philosophical conversation, I think, in terms of this. But I wanted to, just before we wrap up, to ask you just a little bit more about like 2022, 2023, kind of like some of the, kind of like looking back but looking forward, and sort of like what's next for Beardbrand in some ways. What was 2022 like? If you could just paint like a little brief picture of kind of what it was, and then what are you thinking about for the next year?
Yeah, I mean, 2022 was kind of a challenging year for us. I actually did a yearly recap on my podcast, e-commerce conversations, where I went into a little bit greater detail. But we were riding pretty high in 2021, and riding high in the regards of sales were up, but it was driven primarily through advertising, which was not sustainable or profitable. So it was, like a slow, I guess a more spectacular crash is the direction we would have gone if we continued on that pathway. So we made the decision to reallocate our focus towards organic content in 2022, which to a certain degree would describe it as gliding, gliding safely down a bit. We did roll out new initiatives in terms of like building our affiliate program. Another one of those programs that takes a long period of time that you're not going to see the results of until many years down the road, and just like trying to build stronger relationships with influencers. So we kind of tightened our belt on those classic Beardbrand marketing strategies, and we did see a drop in revenue, but a bump in profitability. And then you know 2023 is actually off to a pretty rocky start. It's not the start that I was hoping or intended. I think we've got opportunities to improve our website experience and how people can purchase from us, as well as new channels. So we're reshifting our focus from selling in Target and bricks and mortar to selling on Amazon, which is, I wouldn't say it's not our first time doing this, but it's like a new initiative. We haven't done it in about 5 or 6 years since we last sold on Amazon. So being able to grow our Amazon, and then we also pulled out of Europe a number of years ago, I think 2019, and maybe exploring how we might be able to start a distribution again in Europe, and being able to grow those markets are kind of like the three main things. So subscriptions and website conversion, Amazon, and European distribution are what I'm probably most focused on for 2023.
Yeah, I highly recommend anyone listening who hasn't check out Eric's podcast where he recaps that year behind. It's really great listen. I actually caught it yesterday as I was prepping for this, and a lot of great takeaways. The Amazon piece I wanted to touch on a little bit more if I could. It's just I think you had mentioned you're taking your brick and mortar or Target offering and putting that on Amazon. Is that correct, or like what's the strategy with Amazon?
Yeah, I want to have different SKUs that aren't available on our website that are available on Amazon, and really make sure that we control the Amazon experience. We don't get a lot of third-party sellers or gray market sellers. So yeah, we're focusing on what was traditionally, we would call it our white line, but lumberyard fragrance. So you can see that I've got some here. I was actually creating some videos for Amazon yesterday,
That's
and
awesome.
I've never sold on Amazon before. I know there's some hacks. I've had plenty of people on my podcast who kind of share ideas of how to do it. So I feel pretty confident in the sense that we have a pretty large following that we're going to be able to leverage that engaged community to maybe get a leg up over someone who's starting this industry completely fresh. It's going to be tough though because we're 8 years late into it, and there's people with 40,000 reviews
Sure.
for their products, and when come in with 100 reviews, it's going to be maybe not as enticing. So being able to figure out ways to create an experience and a product that leads to people leaving reviews is going to be a challenge for us. And then you know I don't know if we're going to have to explore paid acquisition on Amazon as a channel, but that might be something that we explore as well to be able to kind of hit the daily unit targets that we're going to want to do to make the channel worthwhile.
For sure. Yeah, I think as I talked to a few founders as well, thinking about just expanding deeper on Amazon, pulling out of marketplaces, like Target, for example. I think it's been interesting to hear. And I'm curious, like, are you at all fearful of like losing DTC customers to Amazon who would favor that experience? It sounds like, I mean, obviously we talked a lot about like the reasons why you would shop DTC, but are you concerned about that cannibalization at all, or do you just view it as if they're a customer, that's a win, and you kind of keep nurturing sort of those behaviors along?
No, certainly it's a fear of mine. The big reason that we pulled off Amazon a number of years ago was that we saw a dramatic increase in our sales on our website, to the fact that there was clearly cannibalization. People would shop on Beardbrand and buy on Amazon. So I think you get around that a little bit by having different product offerings on the channels. Um, so I don't think we were doing that the first time around. I think our full catalog that was available on our store was also available on Amazon. But yeah, I mean that's a concern. I mean I don't want to engage in a platform and then lose sales. Like it's especially one like Amazon that's just so soulless and so transactional, and so they're all about the commoditization of products, which is to me not a really fun thing. Maybe for consumers it's fine who fall into the consumerism trap, and it's just about how can I buy as much as possible as cheaply as possible, which to me is just like sends shivers down my spine.
Totally. It's yeah, I mean it's a hamster wheel in some ways, it feels like, you're not really gaining as much obviously as if they were shopping DTC for obvious reasons. But I think it is interesting to see, it sort of feels like a necessary evil in a lot of ways too. And consumers demanding a lot of things, obviously, but you kind of touched on it, but like other than 2 day shipping, I don't really get much from buying from Amazon as a consumer other than the convenience factor. But I know that it's kind of, it is something that you kind of have to be, I think, there right now and kind of see, what's going to happen. But are you thinking about like, this is the test with Amazon and you'll kind of see at the end of 2023 where things are at, or is it sort of like a little bit more of a long-term investment for you?
Yeah, I mean we're never afraid to kill off things that may not be worthwhile. As a bootstrap company, a lot of the times we'll ask ourselves, you know, are we doing the best we can at the things that we're good at? Is there still opportunity for growth? And if the answer is yes, then that generally results in killing off distractions to focus on our core competency. If the answer is no, then that gives us an opportunity to explore new channels. So, for instance, like I could say, are we getting, you know, as many sales as we could be getting from our YouTube channel? And I would say no. I still think there's room for growth on YouTube. Something we do well, but I still think there's opportunity to improve. And because it's going to be less friction to get better at the things you already do well, I prefer doing that over, new channel, new channel, new channel. So many people get into this trap of like seeing all the opportunities for growth, growth in Europe, growth on Target, growth on Amazon, growth with this kind of product that's outside of our core. And it's like all of a sudden your business is complicated. You've got
Sure.
vendors all over the place. You've got a billion SKUs. Your customers are confused. They're like, what do these products have to do with anything? and then you're all scrambled around, like basically tripping over a quarter to pick up a dime, and we kind of want to avoid that, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that, having to tighten our belt from time to time and reevaluate. But the reality is, you can do a lot of work in D2C space and e-commerce space. You can do a lot of work, or you can do less work, and generally speaking, be able to figure out how to make the same amount of money. So why would you do that? Why would you do more work for the same amount of money? Unless you're selling your business or you have an exit plan, things like that are valid reasons to do that, but not that's not in our blueprint. So it gets back to like low drama, being able to enjoy life, low stress type of business that my team's been here for a while. They enjoy working here. I enjoy working here, and I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of like a secret hack to life that I have that I wish more people had.
I agree. I think it's often, we feel like, we have this hustle culture and we have to always be doing the next greatest best thing. A lot of what's being peddled, around like, you have to do this now, you have to do this to grow the business. And I think it goes back to the beginning of our conversation, talking about core values, the philosophy, your vision, and how you've really driven the last, 10, 12 years here with Beardbrand. So I think it's a great place, I think, to kind of put a bow in this conversation. But I really appreciate all the insight here, Eric. This has been a super, insightful, but also philosophical conversation. And my final question for you as we wrap up here, looking back at the last, 10 plus years, what is something that you're the most proud of at Beardbrand?
I tend not to look backwards very much. I think there are some things that are cool experiences that you know as you do the business longer, they kind of fade. Like being on Shark Tank was a pretty cool experience. Doing a case study with ShipStation, I think, has actually gotten me in front of more people on TV. So that's kind of cool, like being in a TV commercial. Having a few videos go viral and getting 5 million views on a video or an ad that really hits is pretty interesting as well. And then I guess I know what I'll tell you. So those are all pretty cool. But the thing is, I read this little booklet. It's called the Book of Reminders. You can get it on the website. It's like 40 pages, but it's the side of the field notes. It takes about 15 minutes to read, and it's kind of like the 9 things that I'll remind myself as I face adversity in life. And long story short, it's about focusing on your breathing, focus on love, not really worrying about the distractions, focusing on the present, and not really worrying about like all the things that aren't going to make a difference in 5 years or 10 years. And we gave those out to customers in every order for a quarter, and to be able to see some of the comments about people who were struggling with like alcoholism, or I had one person who got in a car wreck and I think their children died, and being able to forgive themselves for that and to be able to move on. In the book was a reminder to that, and a reminder to the love that they have. Little things like that are probably the things that I'm most proud about in building this business.
That's remarkable, and a great just kind of reminder too. I think of like you talked about like the connectedness that you're really trying to foster with customers, and sort of this community that you've built and continue to build. Is I'm gonna have to pick up a copy of that. I definitely would love to read that and kind of see a little bit of kind of what goes into that. But that's really great, and I think, are you planning to do anything else with that? Is that sort of like a one-off book? Are you doing anything else kind of with that?
No, we'll do it about we kind of cycle through on a quarterly basis. So I have a quarterly planner, and I have a little notebook, and then we have like a product catalog. So we'll actually soon we'll be including that in orders, but I don't know the actual date that will swap over or when it'll be available. But it'll be back available soon for orders.
I'll definitely pick up a copy after this conversation. But Eric, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for all the insightful look, a deeper dive into Beardbrand, and really just all the takeaways. I think anyone listening who's an aspiring or current founder, I'm sure can take a lot away from this. Where can we go to buy some Beardbrand products and also get in touch with you?
Yeah, of course, beardbrand.com is a go-to source, or check us out on social media if you just need to learn. And then if you're brave and can handle kind of libertarian rants from time to time, then you can follow me on Twitter, which is my last name at Bandholz.
Perfect. We'll link out to all that in the show notes here. A must follow on Twitter, so I'll definitely endorse that as well. Wishing you all the best in 2023 and beyond, Eric. Again, really appreciate the conversation.
Awesome, thank you.